On those days where I'm feeling burnt out and stressed out, I'll tell myself, you're not even making a difference, Brenna. They don't even remember you. When they need to fill out their satisfaction survey, they don't know their OR nurse's name. And that's awful. That's awful, because we are really doing such a service to our patients by being the one there that does have an available hand to hold, or is willing to pray with them, or give them a good squeeze before they fall asleep.
Clock in, scrub up, and join us behind the red line. You're listening to First Case, a perioperative podcast bringing you exciting interviews, engaging discussions, and innovative solutions that are changing the way patients receive surgical care. Each episode, we talk to frontline staff, perioperative leadership, and nursing entrepreneurs from across the country as they share their stories, experience, and expertise on the industry we love. From the back table to the boardroom, from wheels in to wheels out, we tackle the real-life issues affecting the OR. Whether you're tuning in for surgical service education or inspiration, we're glad you're here. And now it's time to roll back and start the first case.
This week on First Case, we are talking to Brenna Page. It is Perioperative Nurses Week, and Brenna has worked in the OR for 14 years, and we are going to be talking all things perioperative nurses as we celebrate perioperative nurses across the United States. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back after a short break with Brenna Page. I'm Melanie Perry.
And I'm Justin Poulin.
A 17 Studios production, you're listening to First Case.
Joining us now is Brenna Page. Brenna has been a perioperative nurse for 14 years and has held many different positions during her time in the operating room. Brenna is also one of our expert content contributors here at First Case, and I am super excited to have her on the show today as we celebrate Perioperative Nurses Week. So Brenna, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be back.
I am so happy to have you here. And I know that you've been on the show before, and we have had a great conversation about timeouts with your last interview. But in case some of our listeners haven't maybe listened to that podcast or haven't gotten to know you, why don't you just give us a quick introduction and background?
Oh, okay. Well, as you mentioned, I've been a nurse for 14 years. It's all been in the OR. I'm currently in Denver, Colorado. I'm working at 2 different facilities in the area per diem because I've got 2 little ones at home that demand my attention.
Yep, they always do.
Yep. So you'll find me mostly circulating. Every once in a while, I can scrub a small case here or there, but I leave the big cases to the professionals. But you'll mostly find me in the orthopedic room. Those are my favorites.
Oh, mine too. Absolutely love orthopedics. So then we are celebrating Perioperative Nurses Week. Perioperative Nurses Week is celebrated every year in the second week of November. And this year it's November 13th through 19th. And it is definitely a week that celebrates the achievements and contributions of perioperative nurses within the medical field. And obviously that's not to say that the operating room is only run by perioperative nurses. It takes a team to take care of patients, and everyone has a unique role that is valuable and important. But this week is set aside to celebrate perioperative nurses, and I'm glad that we are getting to have that conversation today about perioperative nursing. So let's take a broader step back and how would you define perioperative nursing? What does that mean to you?
For myself, being an OR nurse, you take on that privileged role of looking after the patient in their most vulnerable state. And that was what initially drew me to the OR. I just thought what an honor that is to be able to care for the patient when they have absolutely no control. We are their eyes, ears, and we're there to protect them while they're under anesthesia.
Absolutely. We're their voice, and they are
exactly.
trusting us to speak up and provide care for them and make sure that their voice is heard even when they're asleep. And it's a burden, but it is an honor to be that nurse providing that care for that patient for sure. So did you always want to be an OR nurse? Was that your dream goal maybe when you were in school? Is that what you were working toward, or was it a surprise?
It was definitely a surprise. I wish I could say I was that 5-year-old with my plastic scalpel running around saying I wanted to be an OR nurse. I was kind of a late bloomer, and I went into college when my peers were graduating.
Okay.
So I chose nursing kind of because I didn't know what else to do.
Mm-hmm.
And once I spent that day in the OR watching an aortic valve replacement at our veterans hospital, I thought, this is it. The circulator took me under her wing that day, and I just thought that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I knew that's where I belonged.
That is really cool. My one day in the OR was not an aortic valve replacement. My one day in the OR was a penile implant.
Oh,
that was not
they put the student in that room.
It was also on Valentine's Day. And so it was just a bundle of jokes with what they were doing and the holiday that it was.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm just sitting here going, we can do that? That exists? So, no, I didn't think I wanted to go into the operating room while I was in nursing school. But different experience, different kind of surgery. I will say that even going back to thinking to that experience, the staff in the room were awesome and they were incredibly nice. And I can still remember looking around the room and them counting and the timeout and everything that they did. It all made an impression on me. Even if that surgery maybe left a much bigger impression on me. And I was like, I don't think this is for me. So I don't tell that story very often, but it is definitely
yes, that is one for the memory books for sure.
Yeah, perioperative nursing. We take care of the whole patient from top to bottom and everything else. But anyway, so that being said, our experiences with nursing school, I do wish that more students got exposed to the operating room and they got exposed to perioperative services because like you, so many nurses get into the OR and they get in that environment in nursing school and they're like, oh, this is it. This is what I want to do. And they figure that out. And if we were putting more perioperative electives in nursing schools, then I think we would be getting more perioperative nurses coming out of college saying, yes, I want to work in the OR. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And trailing on that, I just have a quick story for you. So when it came time for my 180 hours, my senior practicum, I wanted to do the OR. And I was told no. My nursing instructors didn't even want to hear about it because OR nursing really wasn't real OR or wasn't real nursing. And so I went straight to the clinical coordinator and sat down with her in her office and talked to her. And she was looking at my transcripts going back and forth. And she said, well, I don't see how I can say no. You've got good grades. Let me look around and see what I can find for you. And there was a hospital in the Denver area that said they would take me. And I paved a way for the next generation of nursing students that come through that university, they could go into the OR if they wanted to. I was the first one to do it.
That is incredible. And it is a huge statement to advocating for yourself. So if you're a nursing student and you're listening to this and you know that you want to go into a certain field, don't let the first no you get told stop you. Go to that clinical coordinator, go to your person in charge, whoever they may be, and ask and see if there's maybe a way that, like Brenna, you can pave the way for something new to happen. But Brenna, I think that is so cool that you got to do what you wanted to do. So then when you got through with your practicum, did you get a job in that OR? Did you go from
the I left with a job offer.
That's wonderful. Yeah. That's what everybody wants to have happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I came back about a month later after graduation and was just doing kind of busy work that they had me do, helping clean up and stuff until I passed my NCLEX. And then once I passed, then I was able to get in and start the AORN Periop 101 and all that fun stuff.
Cool. That's actually my next question. Did you have a Periop 101 program or?
Yep. So
you learned
6 months.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. What did you think about it?
I enjoyed it. Yeah. And they really tried hard to align what we were doing with the modules to what we were doing in the OR. And
good.
Yeah, it some days it worked, some days it didn't, because it's kind of challenging to do that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't control what surgeries you're necessarily going to have versus what you're learning about. So
exactly.
There's a little challenge there. I see that.
Yeah. And I think they wanted to keep us with one preceptor, but again, 6 months is a long time. That wasn't going to work either.
No.
So we bounced back and forth.
And that is one very true aspect of the operating room that isn't true in other areas of nursing. You're never just probably going to have one preceptor because there's too many specialties. There's too much to learn and too many experts, really. You need to go learn from a lot of them in order to really be a functional OR nurse, I think. So tell me, what is it that you love the most about the OR? What's your favorite?
Oh gosh, I love all of it. I love the environment. I love the fact that we get to work before dawn and we hit the ground running. And this is something that I'm always trying to explain to my husband when he says, "Why are you so tired when you get home?" You have no idea. We have ran and walked 30,000 steps. We have been pulling and pushing and lifting. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So as soon as we get to work, it is just move, move, move. I love the fact that we're interacting with different people all day long, from our patients to our surgeons to our anesthesiologists. I primarily work in outpatient surgery, so I may have a whole day in the same specialty, or I may have a bunch of different variety of specialties. So I could be bouncing from urology to GYN to plastics to ortho, and I love that. I love the pace of it. I usually do about 6 to 7 cases a day. And before you know it, the day's done and you just feel accomplished. And yeah.
It's a great sense of accomplishment, getting the patient in the room, doing the surgery, and then getting him out again. And it's like you starting a task and finishing it. There's something nice about that completion of it. I will say, when people ask me what my favorite thing about the OR is, usually I joke. It's originally, my first answer is, well, my patients are asleep. And it's not a lie. I mean, I've worked in med-surg. I've worked in the ICU. I've worked in other places. Yeah. I like patients that are asleep. Mm-hmm. But humor aside, one of my favorite things about the operating room is the camaraderie between everybody there. They might have a different degree. They might have a different educational background. They might be doing a different job. But together, we are all providing patient care. And I really do love getting to work with all the different people, with all the different expertise that they bring into the room every time we do a case. And it's just fun. I mean, I love orthopedics. Everybody who knows me knows that ortho is my jam and it's my favorite thing. And I like the environment. Sometimes it can turn into a frat party kind of thing. It's just kind of what the OR does. But as a general rule, it is just, it's fun. But we never forget about our patient, and we are still taking care of our patient. So I love the environment, kind of like you said. What do you hate about it, or what is maybe your least favorite?
My least favorite, which I think is the reason why I went into the surgery centers, was I do not like those long cases. I do not like sitting in the same case for 8 hours. That was when I was working in the hospital environment. Oh, those were long days. And of course, my heart would always go out to the patient who had to endure it all. But the long, drawn out cases all day long just really drained me physically and mentally, to the point where I couldn't function like I wanted to as an OR nurse. I wanted to keep moving.
Yeah, there's a different energy for sure when you're turning over cases and going back and forth and the boom, boom, boom going through them versus the let me get to work, let me set up, and then bye. I'll see you before I clock out because I'm not leaving this room ever again. And yeah, I've done both as well. The surgery center I worked at, I would have a plastic surgeon who would do these just big cases, and you'd clock in, and that was where you were going to be for the rest of the day with that one case. And it was... Or big spine cases, we would do the same thing. But anyway, yeah, they do. They drain you in a different way, and it doesn't keep your energy going like the turnover and go. But everybody's different. And one of the beautiful things about the operating room is there are people that love those long cases, and they are great at them. And I'm happy that they're here because they can go do them. And then those of us who want to turn and burn and keep on going, there's cases like that too. So once again, the multifaceted variety that the operating room brings. It's wonderful. So tell me a story, maybe about patient care that still sticks with you, or something that was really meaningful to you in your time so far as being an operating room nurse.
Oh, gosh. Do we all have a box of tissues handy? The one story, well, I don't even want to say story, but the one patient that will always stick with me is the only patient that I lost in the OR. And after all this time, to say that there's only been one, I think is pretty good.
That is good, yeah.
It was a case I got called in on a weekend, and she was 90 years old. She was the cutest little pixie. And at this hospital, we had the surgical caps, the silver ones that were made out of like the space blanket material. And I still remember putting it on her head, and she giggled. She thought that was the funniest thing. And we were taking her back for a septic shoulder. We were going to just do a quick washout. She had fallen at her nursing home, and she was there by herself. We had called the family, and they didn't want to come up. And so just a typical Saturday morning, and we wheeled her back. And as soon as we gave her the propofol, she just left.
Oh, no.
And I think, we're, as OR nurses with our training, we do our code blue training a couple times a year, and we're always up with our ACLS, and you think code blue, oh my gosh, let's go. And everything is rush, 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 and code cart, pads, whatever. And in this moment, I can still remember the peacefulness and the heaviness of the quiet. And we all just stood around her. And the anesthesiologist had a resident with him, and she was checking the femoral artery every time the anesthesiologist gave epi. And we would get a heartbeat for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and then she would go. And so we waited for the surgeon to call it. And it was a peaceful moment, but it was so sad.
Yeah,
because we just weren't expecting it. And I know that I will get to see her again one day, but after all these years, she still sticks with me.
They do. Patients leave their mark on us for sure. And being nurses, we are in the business of healing. And so when we are suddenly in the business of losing, because sometimes that's part of what healthcare is, it can be very heavy and hard. And knowing that we made a difference in our patients, though, and we influenced them for the positive prior to getting them into the OR, I think sometimes I can take a little bit of comfort in that, because what else can we do? Once they have gone to sleep, there is nothing, they don't remember anything else. They're not awake anymore, but what was my interaction with them prior to them going to sleep? Did I make them feel safe? Did I make them feel comforted, or whatever they were needing? And I mean, there's a little bit of comfort, I think, to take in that we put so much of ourselves into giving. Even that little 5 minutes of time that we give to our patients can make a difference, and it can be helpful. I know one patient, I'll never forget, another little 90-year-old lady. Why is it the 90-year-old ladies? What is it? I think it's because they're just, they exemplify the frailty and I don't even know, but just the frailty of life sometimes. And we see it in this little 90-year-old lady who is just skinny and frail and dependent on us. But we had her in the OR. I don't even remember what we were doing, but she was going to sleep, and I was standing up at the head of the bed. We're putting the patient to sleep. I'm standing there, doing my job. And she reached out. She grabbed my hand. She goes, "Please hold my hand," because she was scared. And so I did. And I grabbed her hand, and her hand, it was old, and it was wrinkled, and it was bony, and you could see her knuckles and all these things that you see in a senior adult patient. But she grabbed it, and she held it until she fell asleep. And just knowing that we can provide that comfort to our patients before they go to sleep is huge. And it's a privilege that we shouldn't take lightly, because that is part of our role as a perioperative nurse, despite the chores and the tasks and the counts and the everything else that we do. Being there to just pour into our patients is huge for sure. But yeah, those patients leave their marks on us. Absolutely. For good and for good and for bad sometimes. And sometimes for sad, but we do the best, and then we keep moving, and we have to keep going. And that is also challenging.
But you're right. It is amazing to think that in those few quick moments that we get to share with them before anesthesia is administered, we do make a difference. We absolutely do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that we do ourselves a disservice if we think that we don't, because patients are scared. If you're doing pediatric surgery, you've got parents who are nervous. Even if you're doing adult surgery, you might still have a parent or a family member or a caregiver there who's scared and worried. And we can alleviate that concern. We can alleviate that worry, and we can provide assurance that yes, we're going to give them great care. Your family member, your loved one, you are in great hands. I had a patient ask me to pray for them one time right before we rolled back. So I'm like, okay, let's do that. Whatever you need to make you feel comfortable. Absolutely. And that's a valuable role that we play.
And I'm so guilty of that too. On those days where I'm feeling burnt out and stressed out, I'll tell myself, "You're not even making a difference, Brenna. They don't even remember you. When they need to fill out their satisfaction survey, they don't know their OR nurse's name." And that's awful. That's awful, because we are really doing such a service to our patients by being the one there that does have an available hand to hold, or is willing to pray with them, or give them a good squeeze before they fall asleep. Absolutely.
Yeah. And also too, I think we lose sight of that sometimes in the hustle and bustle, and we're in such a hurry. Let me go through my checklist. Let me just get through this done and get this patient to the room because we got to hurry. And sometimes we can forget the impact that we can have, I think, for sure. But I think recognizing it's a huge impact, and it's definitely one that it's a big responsibility, but it's an honor to take care of these patients for sure. Okay. We're going to switch gears. We've been talking for a while, and I want to make sure we talk about this before we end our conversation. But perioperative nurses have very unique certifications, and we carry different ones based on the part of the OR that we work in, or what type of OR we work in. So tell me about yours. What certifications do you have?
I have my CNOR. I went and tackled that as soon as I hit my 2-year mark, while all that information was still fresh. Then I also have the new certification that CCI came out with a couple years ago. It's the certification for ambulatory surgery nurses.
So tell me about that. How was that process with a new certification?
Well, it was a little tricky for me because I originally had it scheduled when COVID really hit and most of us were under the stay-at-home order. So they rescheduled it, and as you know, you're at their mercy when they reschedule it. You just have to go, or else you're out your money. And they scheduled it. I was 2 weeks out from having my son. I was probably on an hour and a half of sleep. And I went down there and took that test. I was a little surprised I passed. I'm not going to lie.
A little bit of pressure, no big deal. We're used to working under pressure, right?
Gosh, yes. So, yeah, but I thought it was a very well-written test, and I was really impressed with it. And yeah, I was very excited I passed it.
So with this CNAMB, it's for nurses that are working in an ambulatory surgery setting. I understand that when you're taking the test and when it's certifying, is it asking more questions specific to what you would do in an ambulatory surgery center, or what's unique, I guess, about the certification compared to the CNOR when it comes to what you're being certified in? I guess is my question.
Yeah. And it did focus a lot more on the outpatient procedures that you're going to see there. And I remember there were a lot more sterilization and anesthesia questions with the CNOR. I didn't get a whole lot of that with the other one. But your emergency protocols would be the same.
Got it.
Yeah, with your code blue and your code red. Yeah. So I think having that CNOR on top of it helped too.
Just
definitely
fed right into it and made it better.
Process. Mm-hmm.
For sure. Yeah. Another one of the certifications that perioperative nurses can have is the CSSM. That's the one that I have besides my CNOR.
Yeah. Congratulations on that, by the way.
That was, mind blowing when it comes to taking that test.
Gosh.
Oh man. For one, I think anybody who wants to be in OR leadership should study for the thing, whether they take the test or not, because it was just, it is the business side of the OR, and it is what I think leadership really needs to work on. Yes, you need your CNOR as a clinical nurse, and then the CSSM for the perioperative leadership side is huge. I learned so much in really learning, okay, which agency is in charge of this? Which agency does that? Who has oversight for X, Y, or Z? And really knowing how to connect the dots with all the different overseeing agencies and government agencies and whatnot was very, very helpful. And it's just crazy. But once again, like you said, I never thought I would say it was a good test, but it was a good test. And I thought that it was well done in terms of testing knowledge. But what you learned studying for it was huge. I highly was very impressed with the study process once I passed the test. Until then, I was stressed out.
I know you were. I could sense it through text messaging.
I was, me and test anxiety, man.
We all knew you were going to do great, though.
Well, thankfully I did. Yeah. And, but those are interesting certifications, and they're different. And I know that everybody really hits on the CNOR and hits on the importance of that one. And it is very important. It's your clinical expertise. It shows that you know, what's going on in the operating room, but then branching out, if you work in an ambulatory surgery center and having that CNAMB and showing that you have that expertise as well, or in management and you have the CSSM, other ways to add on to showing off your expertise and skills within the perioperative space. I just think it's an excellent addition to the CNOR. And then finally, because I know we're getting close to time, what do you think the future looks like for perioperative nursing and for the operating room as a whole?
Well, I had hoped that by this time in my career, we would have a lot more things cordless. Yeah. I'm really bummed that I'm still tripping over the cords of the mini C-arm and the tourniquet.
Right.
No. Well, technology is just going to continue to bombard us. It's crazy. I just did my first spine case with the O-arm. I had no idea that it came with all of that navigation equipment. It looked like my OR was a giant video game.
It's really cool, isn't it?
It is. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
So I know that no matter what, the OR nurse is going to have to continue to keep up with her knowledge of the new equipment that's going to be rolling in constantly and learning how to troubleshoot it. And as far as staffing, I really hope that nursing as a whole can figure out a way to bring in those new nurses and make the OR attractive to them, entice them to come in, and then keep a culture of support and encouragement and keep them in the OR, because there's just not a lot of us left. And as we're seeing right now, we are so stressed and burnt out because we're short-staffed everywhere. So I'm really hoping that as we move forward, we can bring more people into the field, because I don't know what this is going to look like in 10 years if we continue down this path.
For sure. Definitely. I think that the staffing crisis that you brought up actually is helping drive this idea of revisiting perioperative nursing electives in nursing school and exposing nursing students to the OR, because we are desperate for staff. We need more people. And where can we get them? We can get them as new grads and bring them in, train them, and then create career OR nurses, which is awesome. And so while it's very terrible to be working under stressful conditions and not enough staff and all of the stress that goes with that, I think perhaps one benefit to it is that more people are realizing, we can bring in new grads. We can train them. We can use a Periop 101 program. We can expose them to the OR in nursing school. And so hopefully, I hope that will help alleviate the crisis in the future. Although in the meantime, we're still stuck with the staffing shortage as it is, which isn't fun. But I do agree. I think that technology as well is going to be, it is already moving in leaps and bounds, and seeing the augmented intelligence and virtual reality and all the different ways that technology is being used to improve surgery and to improve patient care. It's fascinating, but we are going to have to stay on top of it. We're definitely going to have to stay on top of it for sure. But as we finish this interview discussing perioperative nursing and why we love it and why we hate it sometimes, but the beauty of the job that we do, are there any other final thoughts? Anything else you want to say before we wrap this up?
I just want to give a shout out to all those fabulous OR nurses out there who are getting up every morning and just being their amazing selves and working their hearts out and taking care of their patients. And we chose this field because we've got the strength, the endurance, the compassion, and the heart to get it done. And I'm so proud of all of you. I'm so proud of all the people that I've met doing this. And this has been a wonderful career choice. And a shout out to all of you. Keep it up.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And happy Perioperative Nurses Week. That was Brenna Page, perioperative nurse, sitting down talking to me, celebrating Perioperative Nurses Week this week. And that is going to do it for this week's show. As a reminder, you can support us by subscribing to First Case on Apple, Amazon, or Google Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or on your favorite podcast application. You can also access bonus content for certain episodes by downloading our smartphone application for iPhone and Android. We would certainly appreciate a rating and review because your feedback is important to the show. If you have any recommendations for topics or guests on the show, just send an email to info@firstcasemedia.com. And on behalf of all of us here at First Case, thank you for listening to this week's show.